So we streamed for about 2 hours on this one, and we were talking to Ronnie and Fia, two of my favorite characters. Guess because I'm a big simp for them. They're just nice. I mean, they're friendly, and they have nice voices. And when you're in a From Software world and everything is trying to kill you, and everything looks horrible and twisted and rotten and ragged, it's just nice to see a pretty doll face. Nothing sexual about it. Just, it's a respite. It's a bit of therapy. And then to do their quest was nice because you make progress so fast. And it's not just like, could you imagine in this game if they were like, I need thee to collect 42 scarab beetles. You go, what? I need thou to go to this area, clear out all the mobs, and return. No. It felt very meaningful, and it felt like you're progressing the story, and it felt like this world. Another thing they do to make it feel lived in is it's not just that you see people moving around. It's not just that you see animals and you see that the different characters look like the area they're in, and they look like they have a life and stuff in here. So what I like is that there seems to be there are these two factions. The Golden Order is doing their thing. Ronnie's got something she wants to do. They all have like a life and an agenda in it. Reminds me of Deus Ex Invisible War, where you do a mission and there's all the different factions and they want you to do something slightly different based on their needs. So yeah, the messages are vague. It's very helpful to have Horky and Prince helping me through it, but it definitely offsets the distractingness I already have. But way more than two factions too, right? But these are the ones we're dealing with right now. The areas were so fun. I mean, I feel like on paper, you'd think all I really did was I kind of went to one spot, really. Just a couple spots. Fought a few hands in that sorcerer. And loved it. And died a million different ways. Funny ways, falling. We've turned that thing upside down. But it was just a really fun puzzle to figure out. And it felt like you could do it in a lot of different ways. You could use magic, ranged attacks, fast weapons, slow weapons. Do you want to clear them out first before moving on? It just felt like strategically stimulating. You really had to consider what you were doing, and it had consequences. And I didn't feel frustrated like I was banging my head and like I was stuck with the same strategy. And even though it was linear, there was a lot of room to maneuver. So it's just like a hell of a lot of fun. And just that perfect level of challenge. Well, I don't feel like I'm over leveled or anything. What am I at? Before I say that. So I'm at level 70. Is that pretty high? Strength 36 and 34. And I'm using a weapon that has a dexterity of C and a strength of D. And I've pretty much just used this. I only switch to that twin blade every once in a while to clear out maybe some more mobs or get some quick attacks in. Or just if you need to do a faster attack, but it's just so balanced, and like the pacing of it, just when you feel like you're getting kind of your teeth sunk into a zone, they kind of move you out of it. That first tower that we went up, I don't like being stuck in some of those areas for too long. I guess I kind of have bad memories of, like Demon Souls and earlier Dark Souls, where you just get to know a place so well because you're running that same track over and over. But not once did I feel like it was tedious, and probably the part that I had to try the most was that crazy electrified dragon, which all felt so optional, because if you didn't exhaust the dialogue options, or warp to certain spots, if you didn't really explore it and interact with it, I would have missed that stuff. And it was a really fun battle, and I didn't have to run through a bunch of enemies to reload the battle. And it was challenging, but it was obvious of like, here's the attacks, dodge them. They're fun to look at, they're fun to dodge. It definitely feels more like it's a matter of time you're going to take down a boss, as opposed to the older From Software games where you think this actually might be impossible, and then you make the impossible possible, which is a good feeling. But this doesn't have that. This is more like you'll beat this. This is just like playing a. Kind of feels like a Nintendo game, but harder, of like a very difficult Nintendo game. The later levels. This is like a Nintendo game that's after you've beaten the main quest, and then they have this little secret purple zone. Yeah, a lot of opportunities for strategy, and because it's and using that dark fantasy, Dark Souls, the bones of different armor, magic, range attacks, different weapons. Yeah, that is the missing oomph. The I mean, for me being a musician, it's like when I first would play guitar, and you'd think, oh, I'll never be able to do that, and then you practice for a few weeks, and you can, and it's a neat feeling. And that is gone. I mean, it was fun to beat the dragon, but it's not. I don't know. You know what it's? I've never done crack, but I assume if you gave somebody fake crack, like we made it in a lab, it's synthetic. Not that like that good old natural crack. They'd probably be like, yeah, it's not the same. I don't know why I had to go to crack, but I think it's just that explosion of like, oh my god, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, and then bam, you do it. And when you, I mean, I remember so many moments beating a boss in Sekiro or Bloodborne, and you know, jumping out of my chair and dumping water over my head, or just you remember it because of the repetition, and because feeling like it's impossible, and the multiple days of trying and getting better, then getting worse, and then I broke a glass and I spilled coffee and I felt distracted. But yeah, I guess that's something. I probably won't forget that. I'll probably remember that dragon more than most of the bosses. I mean, a few of the characters that we've ran into in the field where Horky calls them boss turned field enemy, I don't remember fighting them the first time. So, yeah, it's not as memorable, but it's more enjoyable. I'm definitely getting all the great things of From Software games out of it. Just the beautiful ambience and seeing new areas constantly, and just the way they approach dialogue and world building, the way the characters interact with each other and yourself. And I actually find it less obtuse than a lot of the other games' lore. You know, I didn't really know what was going on in Bloodborne other than there was this Night of the Hunt, and then there was some alien tentacly Cthulhu monster that seemed to be in charge of everything, and the moon had something to do with it, and blood being injected or something. But I don't really know what was happening. And then we were getting umbilical cords, and there was being reborn, and then Gurman was like the first hunter, and then you took his place. I don't. But I don't know. I didn't feel what was your place in the world other than to become the first hunter, and why do they have hunters? I don't know. But I do remember the very first time I played Bloodborne, and not really knowing that's what the From Software lore is going to be like, and just walking through Yarnum and knocking on people's doors and them laughing at you, or rich people inside just like carrying on even though there's all this horribleness outside. So it was definitely, there was so much story being told from the world, right? There's some more esoteric lore within the factions, right? The lore in the game is so much drama. You're lusting for more tea. Yeah, I guess you have to write it yourself. Yeah, this one feels more like, even though on paper hearing, well, there's more political faction lore, makes me instantly go, oh, I have no interest in that. But seeing it happen, the way they do it with Fia and Ronnie and that golden guy. I mean, to me, the gameplay being the story, doing those quests for Fia and watching that progress, and then learning that she wanted to have that baby with Godwin. And the way it felt like everything you were doing with her was optional, you know? Because she asked you several times what you wanted to do, and we would do it. And she seemed kind of surprised. And then to come back and just out of nowhere, this dickhead has murdered her. Even if she would have died after giving the child birth, and like hopefully she gave birth to the kid. I didn't see it. And then to make that decision yourself that I'm going to kill this guy. And I know it's From Software, and I could be taking a big risk at not having access to something because of it, or like shutting out an ending possibility or a quest possibility. There's that unknown consequence, but it really felt like at that moment I wanted to murder that guy. And I got to do it. And it wasn't an epic fight. It was somewhat challenging, but he went down pretty easy. And he was just so smug. He doesn't even turn and look at you. He has his back to you. He's just frozen in his victory pose with the blood still on his sword. And this woman who is basically defenseless just gave birth and is now, there's blood everywhere. What if he killed that baby? I don't know. So there's more mystery. So this game is fucking fantastic. And I'm actually really loving the story. And they just nailed everything I wanted out of a From Software open world game, and a little more that I didn't think would be there. Oh, did he brandish the baby? He seems the brandishing type. So I'm very excited to play more of it. It's so nicely paced. It's a nice level of challenge. And it's a pleasant romp. I think it's such a big game that maybe I wonder if they really intentionally decided we're going to make it easier. And I'm sure there's ways you can play to make it harder, but I mean, even if I didn't have the Mimic tier, I think the dragon fight would have been pretty similar, because whenever you're fighting the dragon, you're generally in the same spot the Mimic tier is anyway. So, and he's doing mostly area attacks. I love it. I think it's great. It is interesting to me that almost everybody in the chat has gone through a bit of burnout with the game, where they have to step away because it is so big and it is such an oppressive atmosphere. And I don't play it every day. Maybe like 4 or 5 times a week or less. And little sessions, and I have help from people that I cannot believe you guys are going to remember all this stuff. Yeah, maybe. It worked really well. It just seems like whatever Miyazaki decides to tweak, he just does everything so intelligently. If you're going to have a horse, he made the horse control really well. He gave you a double jump because it's just that little bit of extra help, because programming horse movement in an open world is going to be difficult. So here's a double jump. We're going to make it really open, so we're going to go and rely on our previous sort of battle systems and not do anything too crazy with that, but adds a couple fun things, like the guard counters I find really fun. And the spirit arcs, I know they had those, I think, in like Dark Souls 3. The fun points, the summons, the Ashes of War. Yeah, I barely use any of that. And that's a fun way to customize it and switch up how you want to play. The little legacy, or those like little tiny, I don't know what they call those, the little tiny dungeons they have, little shrines. They're just like such a perfect size. He knows where you can skimp. He's not just like Square Enix. Where Square Enix, they make one of the mainline games, and they do know where to skimp. They will skimp on NPCs. You'll be playing Final Fantasy 13 or 15 or whatever, 16. And actually 16 is not even their flagship anymore, 7 Remake. And the cutscenes will look amazing. All the main characters will be the most beautiful characters in gaming. The music, the animation. But it's the NPCs that look like they're from the previous gen. They're like, hi, I could be on a PS3. And they just stand around. So Square Enix does know where to cut back a little bit, but they tend to do everything at such a high level, it takes them forever to make a game. Whereas From Software, they know where to cut back. They know that, well, we can copy paste in these bits here. They probably have like some kind of way of generating this, these vast spaces that's just randomized enough, just dark in some areas, and they're just so smart. And that's a lot of what it takes to be successful in making games is that you can't just make everything at a super high level of detail, because you have to know where to put your resources to be efficient, and what the actual gameplay is going to be. But they just do such a good job of making everything feel like a meaningful decision. And I just miss that in games. And, they don't mind, like, all right, you're going to have this stupid helmet on. When you hug that character, it's going to clip through, but nobody cares. Because you're just happy to see your big stupid helmet on your character. Because it feels like that was your decision, and here it is. And it kind of, it just actually sparks your mind to think, like, what would this scene look like with all the other armor? Could it be even funnier? You've already seen the story. At this point, you're just trying to, like, make it a sandbox of some kind, and then you can kind of role play it in that way. I really haven't hit, at this point, I feel like the game is like your character picks up so much steam, and I haven't felt this game drag at all. Maybe earlier. It's tough to remember now, but I've gotten so many hours of great gameplay out of this. There might have been, look at that, 50 hours, and I'm sure some of it is me standing around talking like this, but even if I got like 40 solid hours, this game is obviously worth the money. And it's a game I think almost everybody should try. If I had talked to Ronnie earlier, would I have checked the tower next door? I probably just would have went over there and explored it, because they do such a good job of putting it in your view. I'm not even halfway. Good God. Okay, so this is now why I realize people will need to back off from it a bit. I feel like I'm 3/4 or further. Just the way the characters are talking to you and saying things like, go, become the Elden Lord. And just the way we feel so powerful. Yeah, I think I might have missed stuff, but I think if I wasn't streaming, I probably would have been. I'd be paying more attention to those details. I'm probably looking to kind of. I tend to not like to leave an area unless I've checked out some spots, but I think they do a pretty good job of signposting and Breath of the Wild style. There, you can just see something off there, and there's a reason for you to go after it, like where those jellyfish are, and you follow the path of jellyfish. I love how much inspiration they must have taken from Breath of the Wild, because these two studios know how to do a fucking open world. And, everybody else should really pay attention to this. Or maybe just kind of have your own niche. This one and Breath of the Wild are for gamers that like to interact more with it, have more gameplay with it, and there's like the Ghostwire Tokyo Ubisoft style of just fill it up, guide people along. The people that only play when they're, I don't know, drunk or stoned on their couch, so they're tired. They just want to be helped. Or maybe younger gamers, I don't know. Or younger people inherently better at multiplayer but not at single player and thinking, if they haven't had to for a long time. Another existing series with this quality of open world. I don't know, Deus Ex maybe? Shadowrun? I mean, I'm such a sucker for cyberpunk stuff, but it'd be really fun to have that overarching plot, the different factions. I'd like a pilot game like this would be great, Yeah, like a Cyberpunk 2077, but just obviously, like, see, Cyberpunk 2077, they're like, oh, well, we have to have driving. Okay, well, adding a car is going to be difficult. And so maybe you should have the combat be like Witcher, since you've just barely figured out how to do the combat in The Witcher 3. And people already said that's kind of the weakest point of the game. And The Witcher 2 combat was, like, broken and bad. And they're like, no, we're also gonna have. It's gonna be first person. It's gonna be a first person shooter. Like, okay, well maybe cut something else in, because you're trying to make a first person shooter, and we're gonna have first person melee. Like, all right, and it's a big fucking open world, and there'll be police, kind of, and there'll be branching storylines, and there'll be little side missions, and people will constantly be calling you all the time, and we're not gonna balance it because we are. This is just everything is so new to them. Right. So, what would you do? Well, what are the other big franchises out there? XCOM. No. Um, I mean, Mario already did it with Odyssey and Bowser's Fury, are like different takes of open world. Breath of the Wild did it obviously perfectly for my tastes. Halo Infinite has jumped into the pool. Kirby's doing it, yeah. The driving games have been doing it for a long time. When I think of, what games do I even have? The next Sonic game. Yeah, Sonic could be fun if you just had it being open and it was. See, the thing with Sonic, okay, if you did Sonic like that, you need to make it. They need to focus first off. How do we make it fun for Sonic to run around? And what I would do is do it in like an urban area with a lot of streets and stuff, and like a futuristic city where all the streets are like half pipes and tubes and stuff. And you need to make it really fun to keep the momentum up for Sonic to keep moving, moving, and moving. And it needs to be a big world, so you need to have less detail and less places he can go into, and then just have him running around and like make it more like vertical. Maybe have him bouncing off things, and that's what I would want to do with Sonic. And then have him have little challenges everywhere, traversal challenges. And because you made your first priority make it fun for Sonic to move and make it intuitive to control, then all those movement challenges are just going to support that. But I feel like in the 3D, whenever I watch the 3D Sonics, the weight always seems wonky, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of skill. It's just sort of, I don't know. You're just kind of jumping up and rocketing forward, as opposed to weaving in and out of people. Maybe bring the camera in tight, and have them move fast, but have to dodge and think quick. Traversal is the key. Yeah, Mega Man. I mean, I think Mega Man's strengths are always tight platforming, so I think he just works so well in 2 dimensions. Dead Rising, I guess, is already like that. Let's see, what else? I like Ratchet and Clank as a straight up linear thing. I think Ratchet and Clank excels because of its linearity. A golf game could work like that. Hot Shots Golf in a big giant open world with tons of challenges, and you meet different characters, and basically like a golf story. Maybe a fighting game where you're like Ryu and you're the world warrior. Yeah, it'd be cool. My collection. Oh, right, I'm a different user. This is my Australian collection. Why do I have everybody's golf on there? Yeah, I'd love a golf game like that. They had a really great Wing Commander game called Privateer, where you went around you just went around space. You did lots of mini missions, and there was an overarching story. It's like made in the early 90s. It's great. Da, 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 da. Yeah. I guess it's a golf, a cyberpunk type game. Or what was the one I said before? Yeah, Dead Rising. Yeah, better. Oh, and Sonic, actually, if they could do it. But they need to go back and make that movement so much better. Oh, Katamari, yeah. Yeah, that could work really well because it's all about that exploration and growing. But how would you scale it? Because Katamari are always growing bigger and bigger, so you kind of need it to be subdivided into levels, right? It would, because you would have to have every object be accessible to when when you're all these different sizes. It'd be quite an achievement to nail that. Hmm. All right. Oh, Gravity Rush could work as that too. It's already fairly open. All right. Well, guys, that was a lot of fun.